Hey everyone, and welcome back to another episode. Today, we are going to take a trip down Nostalgia Road, exploring some of the most gorgeous dungeons that Blizzard has ever created. A few caveats first though. Firstly, beauty is obviously in the eye of the beholder, and what may be appealing to me may not necessarily be that appealing to you. So you are definitely most welcome to disagree with this list, and I very much welcome any suggestions you may have. That being said, I think it would be pretty difficult to argue against these dungeons being amongst the best looking ones out there. Additionally, other than number 1, which just flat out trumps all the rest, this list isn't built in order of importance or superiority. I just feel like all these dungeons are pretty much awesome looking. So let's get straight into it. Number 3. Scarlet Monastery. Coming first on this list would be our most infamous Scarlet Monastery. The iconic stronghold of the Scarlet Crusade, this dungeon holds dear memories for all of us, dating back to the beginnings of vanilla. Once a cathedral to the light, it has since been overtaken by zealots, branding all who don't swear allegiance to them to be as evil as the undead. Crazy fanatics, basically. Since the Cataclysm, the area has been split into 2 wings, namely the Scarlet Halls and the main area of the monastery itself. The Scarlet Halls wing boasts a most grandiose and iconic area, the Hall of Champions. It used to contain Herod, a boss most of us vanilla junkies are sure to remember due to his iconic shoulders. Now, a new NPC boss named Arm Master Harlan resides in its chamber. The room is a perfect circle, flanked by winding steps that lead toward the center. Magnificent stained glass designs typical of religious structures puncture its walls, bathing the entire room with an ambience of reverence. An opening at the top beams down a distinct shaft of light, almost as if the heavens themselves were shining upon its heart. Best of all, the entire hall is surrounded by colossal stone statues. Each of these statues represents an esteemed member of the Crusade, either missing or fallen from battle. These statues gaze down upon any who would enter the sacred halls, rivaling even the presence of the titans within the pantheon itself. One cannot help but be in awe of the presence that they exude. Evil as they may be, this room most certainly represents the epitome of their faith and beliefs. However, of course, we aren't done yet. One room does not make an entire dungeon qualify as one of the most beautiful, but the next part most certainly will. As we step into the main section of the monastery, we are greeted with a sight of amazing splendor. The Scarlet Grounds themselves, directly before the main cathedral, boast of an architectural design comparable to few. A great fountain embellishes the entire center portion of the grounds, with stone corridors and archways flanking its sides. Great sculptures of fish spurt fantastic streams of water out into the air, crisscrossing and coalescing into the middle section of the pond. At its end, 2 small stone lion statues stand guard in the background, with a small waterfall cascading down into the rear of the pond. An incredible sight, to say the least. But we are far from done, because directly above rise 2 gigantic statues, rivaling even those at Stormwind's entrance. With their hands clasped over one another, they gaze down upon any would-be visitors, preparing them for the symbolic presence of reverence within the cathedral. As we ascend the steps, we are greeted by an amazing garden, whereby although in ruins, is still able to, or perhaps even enhance, its beauty. Well-trimmed trees adorn the landscape, with yet another fountain in the middle of an elegantly carved pond. And of course, in the background looms the great cathedral itself, with 3 magnificent spires, towers of the cathedral, rising slowly toward the sky, almost as if they were piercing the heavens themselves. The Scarlet Monastery will always hold a dear place in our hearts, and I do encourage you to revisit the place and rekindle some old memories. For a vanilla dungeon, it still is pretty much one of the most stunning pieces of dungeon architecture in WoW. Number 2. The Lost City of the Tol'Vir. And now, we come to some Egyptian-inspired architecture. The Lost City of Tol'Vir is one of the 3 dungeons in Ul'dum, a zone that was opened up following the Cataclysm. Just for a bit of background info, the Tol'Vir are a race of feline humanoids that were created by the Titans to maintain their lore repositories and machinery around the area. However, like many of their other Titan-forged brethren, they succumbed to the curse of the flesh. In a bid to regain their stone forms, they made a pact with Deathwing and now create havoc all over Uldum from their seat of power, the Lost City. The Lost City is an absolute gem, a combination of greenery and exceptional masonry. An entire river runs right through the city, enhancing its status as the capital of life within the desert wasteland. Its entrance is surrounded by a moat of glistening water, with twin waterfalls facing its high walls. With numerous palm trees and a surrounding barrier of high rocky cliffs, you would almost immediately feel as though you had been transported to another time and place. Within the city itself, though, lies even more spectacular sights. The entire complex is coated in the color of beige, directly reflecting the environment of the surrounding desert. Abodes and houses of simple design conceal the work of specialized artisans. Immense sandstone blocks, carved into perfect squares and rectangles, underpin the design of every structure. The inspiration of the Great Pyramids is clear, with prism-like or triangular-shaped tops capping the roofs of several distinct buildings. To top it off, many of these pyramidical structures have been embellished with brightly coloured gems or glass, clearly depicting the wealth and status of the city. The streams that run through the complex have been transformed into luxurious water features with numerous lily pads and various greenery pocketing its surface. The water itself sparkles with a purity akin to that of crystal, irresistibly tantalizing any would-be desert traveller to jump in for a dip. Amazingly, the city has managed to almost seamlessly merge itself with the surrounding oasis, a perfect blend of stone architecture and natural replenishment. Immense statues also stand guard over the compound, many of them towering even over the highest buildings, contributing much to the fantastic allure of the city. Clearly Egyptian-inspired in nature, donning various Egyptian-inspired fashion and weaponry, they again reflect the opulence of the city's inhabitants. Long corridors of stalls, with their various wares being freely exhibited, signify that the city was not just for that of royalty or for the sake of religious procession, but was also a bustling area of normal everyday life. Everything can be found here, from succulent meat and fruits to splendidly woven pieces of fabric. Lastly, we come to the crowning jewel of the city, a colossal blue gem, as large as some of the houses themselves, sits upon the top of a tower smack right in the center of the city. Supported by numerous stone pillars, the building is clearly religious or royal in nature. Only the King of Kings could live here, a throne room very much worthy of such a grand city. The lost city of Tol'Vir is very difficult to describe its awe-inspiring appeal with words alone. If this were a capital city, I have no doubt that it will receive much praise from the community for its design. Sadly, it is now just one of the many dungeons that we zoom through during time walking for the few tokens at the end. Number 1. Maraudon. And here we come to number 1, numero uno. And that is none other than the majestic, expansive and absolutely stunning Maraudon. If this place were real, it would undoubtedly be one of the wonders of the world. A place holy to the Centaur, Maraudon holds the tomb of Zeta, the son of Cenarius and father of the Centaur. Within the tomb is a maze of underground caves and tunnels, populated by the spirits of long-dead Centaur Khans. Earth elementals, basilisks and rock borers also inhabit the site. It is rumored that satyrs and other emissaries of the Burning Legion have moved into these caverns as well. Maraudon is a gigantic dungeon that consists of 3 wings, with a vast exterior area of Centaur that we had to fight through in vanilla before even reaching the dungeon entrance. However, where the beauty really starts is at the end of the Foulspore Cavern wing and through the wing of Earth Song Falls. Upon exiting Foulspore Caverns, one is given a taste of what is to come with several green waterfalls. Even though the surrounding waters are still poisonous in nature, its mystical allure just can't be denied. Beginning from this stage onwards, the caverns rise high into the sky, with shafts of light beautifully penetrating through the rock surface. As we follow the river past Celebras, one of the minor bosses here, we are struck with a sight that can only be described as breathtaking. Immense waterfalls, like an endless cascade of pure diamonds, fall from the roof of the caverns into a giant pool of pristine water. A secondary level of waterfalls also falls into the same pool, creating multiple levels of what can only be described as heavenly rain. It is absolutely stunning. There are no words that could pay homage to its beauty. It's almost as if you could not only see its purity, but feel it through the screen, with the water just running down and flowing through your entire being. However, the magnificence doesn't end there. As we venture further in, we encounter monumental caverns containing these lavish underground gardens, populated with massive stone giants. Elegant shafts of light beam down from the roof, illuminating the caverns just enough to highlight its grace. It's almost too easy to achieve a zen-like meditative state in this area, with the giants' heavy and pondering steps supplying much to the peacefulness of the surroundings. And for the finale, as we head toward the final boss, we are greeted yet again with an outpouring of waterfalls that just seem to burst out of every corner of the walls. There are so many of them that it just seems mind-blowing. The bridge leading up to Princess Daradas, flanked by numerous waterfalls and illuminated by a shaft of pure light at the end, effortlessly transports you to another world. Its length, expansiveness, and sheer breathtaking magnificence can be rivaled by no other. I remember during vanilla that often during this dungeon, many party members would stop during mob pulls just to gaze at the scenery, soaking in the ambience. There was never a rush to finish this part of the dungeon, and that says a lot in comparison to today's constant mob pulling and the need to finish the dungeon ASAP mentality. This dungeon was chosen as number 1, simply because out of all the dungeons, there is no other that would literally make you stop and oogle at the scenery for extended periods of time. Dungeons just aren't built this way any longer, with multiple wings, secret corridors, and an actual sense of adventure for the would-be dungeon dwellers. Dungeons that transport you to another world. Dungeons that leave a lasting impact on you for the rest of your life. But that's the way things are nowadays. Quick, fast, and convenience are the keys. Dungeons are built for the mechanics, not the actual dungeon delving experience. Fun and quick, but forgettable. But that's just the old nostalgic cripple in me talking, beating an old dead horse. But perhaps that's exactly why we're all waiting with bated breath for the return of the classic servers. And that's a wrap. A short list of the most beautiful dungeons in WoW. Of course, I'm sure you guys have your own list in mind, so be sure to let me know in the comments any that are worth mentioning, and I might just make another video of even more beautiful dungeons in WoW. I hope you have a great week ahead, and I'll see you in Azeroth.